Well, I'm not an expert. I'm not an authority. I'm someone who has been a murderer for almost 20 years.
Maybe I should have killed 400 or 500 people, then I would have felt better.
People say Ted Bundy didn't show any emotion. There must be something in there. I showed emotion. You know what people said? See, you really can get violent and angry.
Welcome to the Squonk The Hag, a podcast about murder, mystery, the supernatural, and even a conspiracy or two.
Dun dun dun.
My name is Mo.
And I'm Kraken.
Hey guys, surprise! It's just Mo right now, and I know we said there isn't an episode this week, which is kind of true. This is a mini-sode. Basically, while Kreko is out of town, I wanted to make sure that you didn't forget about us, so let's put together a tiny little episode about two stories that are kind of linked in my brain. One is something that I was kind of obsessed with for a little while, and then one is a newer one that I saw come up with a very similar premise. So I figured let's have a tiny little bite of true crime for your Thursday here and talk about two interesting stories, both involving authors. So if you don't know, on our website we have a section called Posts, which has stories that might not necessarily make a full episode, but they're intriguing, they're interesting, and some of them are kind of fun. There's a couple of them there in the spooky end of things. But we are going to be talking today about the article we posted about Nancy Crampton Brophy. So Nancy is a romance author, and she has written quite a few different things, but one of the most notable ones is a blog post from 2011 called How to Murder Your Husband. This is actually not still, like the website it was on kind of, I guess, isn't in existence anymore, but if you go on the Wayback Machine, you are able to find it. There is a link to it on the website here, and it's very interesting. I do have a few quotes from it. The intro is lovely, where she says, "I spend a lot of time thinking about murder, and consequently about police procedure. After all, if the murder is supposed to set me free, I certainly don't want to spend time in jail. And let me say clearly for the record, I don't like jumpsuits, and orange isn't my color." She goes on to say things like, divorce is expensive, and do you really want to split your possessions? All the way into what weapon she would use if she committed a murder, and that would be a gun. She says it's loud and messy and requires skill, but if it takes 10 shots for the sucker to die, either you have terrible aim or he's on drugs. So she obviously has a very interesting outlook on life. Now let's fast forward 7 years to June 2nd, 2018. Daniel Brophy, which was her husband, worked at the Oregon Culinary Institute, and he was there early in the morning prepping for the day. He was a very beloved instructor there. While he was the only person in the building at the time, he was shot twice, once in the back and once in the chest. There was a call to emergency services. They got there and life-saving measures were taken, but the bullets pierced his heart, so he unfortunately died on the scene. There were no signs of forced entry, there was no signs of robbery, and again, he was the only person on campus. The investigation went on, and Nancy's alibi was pretty weak. And when they looked at videotapes of the road by the campus, guess who drove by? Twice in a short period of time. So it all came together. They also found that she had multiple life insurance policies out on him. And she also had procured a ghost gun kit off the internet, which she claimed was for writing research. All in all, she was eventually on trial and she was convicted. There were a lot of mistakes on her end, such as admitting it to a cellmate and being recorded on the phone saying some horrible racial slurs against David's students and such. But after 8 weeks, the jury returned with a verdict of guilty, and she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years. She is already 71 years of age, so if she would make it to the 25-year period, she will be almost 100 years old. So it was a crazy story. Like I said, it piqued my interest for a while. That's why we got it up on the website. If you do want to take a look, I would highly suggest checking it out. Our website's thesquonkandthehag.com if you didn't already know. And the post is interesting. There's quite a few like newspaper clippings and a whole bunch of other stuff on there that has some more details. But that brings us to a very recent story that kind of piqued my interest about another author. This is about Corey Richins, and she is a Utah woman who recently published a children's book on losing a parent. So she has 3 children, and their father died. His name was Eric. He had a lethal dose of fentanyl slipped into a drink. On March 4th, 2022, when he passed away, he had 5 times the lethal dosage of fentanyl in his body. And Corey has been arrested. She is currently in police custody. And what the investigation has shown is that she allegedly bought $900 worth of fentanyl pills before Valentine's Day. On Valentine's Day, they had a dinner that she made, and Eric became violently ill, broke out in hives, was having trouble breathing, so he used his son's EpiPen and took Benadryl and was able to survive the night. So then, after that, Corey bought another $900 worth of fentanyl pills. So with that, she laced a drink and served it to him. The couple apparently had been arguing over a home she wanted to purchase that was $2 million, and he said it was too expensive. So then in January, she tried to change a life insurance policy on Eric that he had with his business partner. It was in the business partners as a beneficiary. You know, if something would happen, the business would be taken care of. So she tried to change it that it would be to her, right, would be completely removed from the policy. And that, Eric, it triggered him. He removed her from his will and replaced her with his sister. But she didn't know that, supposedly. So then, a day after Eric passed away, she closed on that $2 million home and had a huge party where she was drinking and celebrating the day after her husband died, which is very interesting. What's really sad about this one, so the Brophy case, it's twisted, it's dark. You know, she basically admitted years before that she would and could do something like this. But this one is a little, I guess, heartbreaking to me that she would then capitalize on this by publishing a book about how to help children and how, like, she used it to, you know, this was the journey of her helping her children with the death of a loved one. So she's capitalizing on her children's grief to try to get away with murder, I guess. But I did think it was interesting. She was scheduled to appear May 19th for a detention hearing. I have to check up on some updates to the story as it goes along. Like I said, it is pretty early on in the investigation, pretty early on in the whole arrest and things, but it found it interesting that authors would go and kill their husbands, and somehow then it ties back into their work, whether it be before or after death. So that's this week's little mini episode. I thought it was interesting. So the first case is Nancy Crampton Brophy, which you can find on our website. There is a little bit of a write-up. And the other one is Corey Richins of Camas, Utah. So it's outside of Salt Lake City. Her name is spelled very interestingly, but if you want to look it up, it's Kouri, and her last name is Richins. But we will be back next week, a full episode. Krakow will be back from his trip, and we will, get right back on track. Thank you guys for listening. And if you have, as usual, any stories that you think would be great to cover, anything that would be, kind of cool to talk about, let us know. Hit us up on the website, hit us up on social media. We would love to hear from you. As always, make sure to check out our website for all of the show notes, sources, and more information at thesquonkandthehag.com.
And we would also love and appreciate your support by either leaving a review on iTunes or through small monthly donations using the viewer support link in the description. And if you don't subscribe, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast network to get notified of new episodes every Thursday.
All right, Krakow, you ready?
Okay, bye.